If you're one of the many who gets confused between the Philistines and Palestinians, you're not alone. Their names sound alike, and both groups are tied to the same region. But by the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding of who the Philistines were in biblical times, who the Palestinians are today, and what the Bible says about both. God's plan for these two groups is distinct, but each plays a significant role in history. Before we dive in, tell me, did you ever wonder if the Philistines and Palestinians were the same people? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to Deep Bible Stories so we can explore more biblical mysteries together. The Philistines were an ancient people frequently mentioned in the Old Testament as one of Israel's most formidable enemies. They lived along the coastal regions of Canaan, primarily in what we now recognize as modern-day Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, and Gath. This area, known as Philistia, became their stronghold around the 12th century BC when they settled in the coastal plains of southern Canaan. The Philistines are often grouped among the Sea Peoples, a confederation of naval raiders who disrupted civilizations around the eastern Mediterranean during the late Bronze Age. Many scholars believe that the Philistines came from the Aegean region, perhaps from Crete or other parts of the Mediterranean, and migrated to the southern coast of Canaan. Their advanced knowledge of iron metallurgy gave them a significant military advantage, especially in their conflicts with the Israelites, who were often technologically inferior in terms of weaponry. The Bible portrays the Philistines as a pagan people, worshipping deities such as Dagon, Baal, and Ashtaroth. Their religious practices stood in direct opposition to Israel's monotheistic faith in Yahweh. This religious contrast is central to many of the conflicts between the two groups, as the Israelites saw the Philistines as enemies of God, and God's judgment was often invoked upon them. One of the earliest and most striking stories involving the Philistines is found in Judges 13-16, which recounts the life of Samson, a judge of Israel. Samson was known for his incredible strength, which he used to fight the Philistines. His final act of pulling down the temple of Dagon, killing thousands of Philistines, is one of the most vivid demonstrations of the tension between Israel and Philistia. The destruction of the temple of Dagon, Judges 16:23-30, is also symbolic of the defeat of the Philistine gods at the hands of Yahweh's chosen servant. Perhaps the most famous encounter with the Philistines in the Bible is the battle between David and Goliath. 1 Samuel 17 tells the story of Goliath, a giant Philistine warrior who challenged the Israelites to send a champion to fight him in single combat. The young David, future king of Israel, stepped forward and with nothing but a sling and a stone defeated Goliath. This event marked a turning point in the Israelite struggle against the Philistines, symbolizing how God's power could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The Bible frequently portrays the Philistines as oppressors of Israel. For example, in 1 Samuel 4, the Philistines capture the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred chest containing the tablets of the Ten Commandments, after defeating Israel in battle. However, the Philistines are punished by God for their desecration of the ark, and they eventually return it after suffering plagues. 1 Samuel 5-6. These stories illustrate the recurring theme of divine intervention against the Philistines. The Philistines were a warlike people, and their military strength is emphasized throughout the Bible. Their iron-based weapons gave them a technological edge over the Israelites, who didn't yet have widespread access to iron. The Philistine armies were highly organized, and their 5 major cities, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gaza, Ekron, and Gath, formed a pentapolis, a confederation of city-states that worked together to maintain power over the surrounding regions. The Philistine military was not only known for its iron weapons, but also for its chariots. In battles against the Israelites, they often fielded chariots, which were a significant advantage in the flat, coastal plains of their territory. The Book of Judges mentions Israel's fear of the Philistine chariots and how they struggled to defend against these powerful war machines. Another element that contributed to the Philistine strength was their strategic control over key trade routes. Positioned along the coastal highways of the Mediterranean, the Philistines were able to exert influence over commercial and military movements in the region. Their cities became hubs of activity, allowing them to grow wealthy and powerful, which made them an even more formidable adversary to Israel, which was more agriculturally based and less commercially connected. The Philistines were present throughout much of Israel's early history, from the time of the Judges through the reign of King Saul and King David. Their constant military engagements with Israel culminated in some of the most defining moments of Israel's rise as a kingdom. King Saul, Israel's first king, frequently fought the Philistines, and his downfall was closely linked to his inability to completely defeat them. His death at the Battle of Mount Gilboa, 1 Samuel 31, came at the hands of the Philistines, marking the end of his reign. Saul's son, Jonathan, was also killed in the same battle, emphasizing the serious threat the Philistines posed to Israel's leadership. It wasn't until David's rise to power that Israel experienced a more decisive turn against the Philistines. After David's victory over Goliath, he went on to become a prominent military leader and eventually king of Israel. Under David's leadership, Israel was able to push back the Philistines and consolidate its control over the land. By the time of King Solomon, David's son, the Philistines were no longer the dominant force they once were. The Philistines continued to play a role in the region until they were subjugated by larger empires, particularly the Babylonians in the 6th century BC. The Babylonian conquest of Philistia marked the end of the Philistines as a distinct people. Their cities were either destroyed or absorbed into the Babylonian and later Persian empires, and their identity faded into history. By the time of the Roman Empire, the Philistines had long disappeared as an identifiable group. Their land was renamed Palestine by the Romans after the Bar Kokhba revolt in AD 135, an attempt to sever Jewish ties to the region by naming it after Israel's ancient enemies. However, the Philistines themselves had already ceased to exist as a distinct people. The Philistines' paganism and frequent opposition to Israel made them a target of God's judgment throughout the Bible. Several prophets spoke of their eventual destruction. For example, the prophet Amos declares, "Thus says the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not revoke the punishment, because they carried into exile a whole people to deliver them up to Edom. So I will send a fire upon the wall of Gaza, and it shall devour her strongholds." Amos 1:6-7. Similarly, Zephaniah 2:5 says, "Woe to you who live by the sea, you Kerethite people. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. I will destroy you, and none will be left." These prophecies of destruction were fulfilled through the rise of Babylon and other empires that overtook the Philistine cities, leaving them desolate and ultimately bringing their culture and people to an end. Fast forward several millennia to the 20th century, and we encounter the term Palestinians. The Palestinians are modern Arab people who have lived in the region known as Palestine, which includes modern-day Israel, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. The term Palestinian refers to the Arab population that has historically lived in this region, particularly during the Ottoman Empire and later the British Mandate of Palestine, 1920 to 1948. The modern Israeli-Palestinian conflict is largely political, revolving around disputes over land, statehood, and national identity, particularly after the creation of the State of Israel in 1948. Unlike the Philistines of the Bible, the Palestinians are not an ancient enemy of Israel, but rather a modern people, engaged in a long-standing political conflict over territorial rights. The name Palestine has historical roots dating back to Roman times, when the Roman Emperor Hadrian sought to erase the Jewish identity of the region after the Bar Kokhba revolt in AD 135. As a form of punishment and humiliation for the Jewish people, he renamed Judea as Palestina, a name derived from Philistia, the land of the ancient Philistines, Israel's historic enemies in the Old Testament. This was an attempt to sever the Jewish connection to the land by associating it with the Philistines, a people who had long since disappeared. However, while the name Palestine has ancient origins, the modern Palestinian people are ethnically Arab and have no direct connection to the biblical Philistines. The modern use of the term Palestinian didn't become widespread until the 20th century, during the period of the British Mandate of Palestine, 1920 to 1948, when the local Arab population began to identify more strongly with the land of Palestine, in response to the growing Zionist movement and the immigration of Jews to the region. The development of a distinct Palestinian identity can be traced back to the early 20th century, particularly during the period of the British Mandate of Palestine, which followed the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I. Under the Ottoman rule, the region had been part of a larger empire, with no specific national identity for the people living in Palestine. The local Arab population, including Muslims, Christians and Druze, primarily saw themselves as part of the broader Arab world, with strong ties to their tribal, religious and family affiliations. However, as Jewish immigration to Palestine increased, particularly in the wake of the Balfour Declaration of 1917, which expressed British support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, the Arab population began to organize politically in opposition to Zionism. During this time, Arab nationalism was on the rise across the Middle East, and the Palestinian Arabs began to see themselves as a distinct group with a common national cause. To resist the establishment of a Jewish state and to maintain control over the land they considered their homeland. This period saw significant tension between the Jewish and Arab populations, culminating in riots, violence, and political unrest. By the time the British Mandate ended in 1948, the stage was set for a larger conflict over the future of Palestine. The Palestinians are primarily Muslim, with the majority belonging to Sunni Islam. There is also a significant minority of Palestinian Christians, especially in cities like Bethlehem, Ramallah, and East Jerusalem. Palestinian Christians have played an important role in the political and social fabric of Palestinian society, although their numbers have dwindled over the years due to emigration and the pressures of the conflict. Today, Palestinians are divided between the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and a diaspora spread across various countries, including Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and beyond. The Palestinian Authority, which was established as a result of the Oslo Accords, governs parts of the West Bank, while the Gaza Strip is controlled by Hamas, a Palestinian Islamist political and militant group. The ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a major point of tension in global politics, with nations and international organizations constantly seeking solutions to bring about peace and stability in the region. The Palestinians' quest for self-determination, statehood, and the recognition of their national identity continues to be one of the most significant unresolved conflicts of the modern era. While the Philistines were destroyed and disappeared as a distinct people group, their judgment was prophesied in the Bible. The prophets foretold their downfall as a punishment for their idol worship and oppression of Israel. This judgment was fulfilled through conquests by Babylon and other empires. As for the Palestinians, while they are not mentioned directly in the Bible, the nations surrounding Israel are included in biblical prophecies about the end times. Zechariah 12:3 says, "On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves." Many believe that these prophecies point to ongoing conflicts over Jerusalem and Israel's future. And while the Palestinians are not the Philistines, they are part of the modern political landscape surrounding these biblical prophecies. The Philistines and Palestinians may share similar-sounding names, but their histories, identities, and roles are vastly different. The Philistines were an ancient people who opposed Israel in the Old Testament and eventually disappeared from history. The Palestinians, on the other hand, are modern Arabs involved in a political struggle over land and statehood in the Middle East. Now that you understand the differences between the two, what do you think about how the Bible portrays these groups and what that means for the region today? Leave a comment below and let's discuss. Don't forget to subscribe to Deep Bible Stories for more in-depth explorations of biblical history and its connections to the modern world.